Hello. We are in Kichijoji, Tokyo, Japan, sitting here with
Matt Alt.
And my first question for Matt is, how can I become a Japanese pop culture expert like you, Matt?
Well, apparently by sitting outside of a Dotor cafe in the middle of a weekday in downtown Kichijoji. This is like we're watching the world go by out here. Don't we? We have jobs.
We're watching the girls go by, and like their average age is like 80 years old.
I feel like we're sitting on Kichijoji's collective stoop.
So here in Tokyo, I came all the way out here just to see a new movie that is playing in the theaters now. It's a big hit.
A Shin movie?
It's called Ghostbusters.
What did you think? Did you send some hate mail to everybody involved?
Yeah, that was me. I was the guy behind the whole campaign.
Was that you? Because that's the best thing to possibly do if you don't like a movie, is to send hate mail to people.
So everybody's talking about the new movie, the sweep in the nation, Shin Godzilla, Godzilla Resurgence. And Matt Alt, I believe you have some thoughts on this exciting new film that's coming. It's going to be distributed globally to 100 different countries by Toho Pictures.
I actually really liked it. It's a really well done film. It's actually like the first, I would say the first real Japanese film that's not controlled by...
Not made for babies?
Well, it's not made starring the latest flavor of the month Idol with just to get seats of young people in the theater. It actually has a message, Whether I agree with it or whether I think it was pulled off 100% is beside the point. It has the director's vision. It's a cool film.
But you're in the minority, Matt, as far as... basic gaijin who's seen the film in Japan, even those who are very fluent in the language, so to speak, are somewhat disappointed with the film, saying it's claiming it's too talky, not enough Gongzilla.
It's hugely talky, but it's every Japanese person I've talked to who's seen the film, from Godzilla fans down to people who've never seen a Godzilla movie before, thought it was really good. And it's made by a Japanese person for Japanese people, so I think that's the mark of whether it's successful or not. I don't want to be I don't want to run down other people's opinions. If they don't like it,
sure.
But I will say that
other opinions are available, right?
But if you
Coke or Pepsi, Matt,
it's made for people who experienced 3/11, the Tohoku tsunami, earthquake, that whole disaster, all the shitstorm that happened after it. People who lived through that will appreciate this film. That's really what it comes down to.
And you, as a survivor of 3/11, Matt, yourself, I saw you on CNN with the word "survivor" underneath it.
Many hundreds of miles away from the action, thank God.
Okay, go ahead.
No, but it's just that's what it is. It's like a political cartoon. It is a criticism, a critique, a parody of the Japanese government's response to a major disaster.
But at the end of the film, spoilers, they manage to get it together. Team Japan pulls through.
Sort of.
In a dysfunctional way, but I mean... I think some of the Godzilla fans I know are rejecting it not because it's too talky or not enough Godzilla scenes, but because it feels like propaganda. It feels like Team Japan a little bit.
Well, sure. I mean, one of the criticisms I keep hearing levied against the film is that it's it has a rosy portrayal of the Japan Self-Defense Forces. But it's
well, they were involved in the making of the film, right?
Hugely. Those are actual real weapons and stuff, and real tanks are driving, real planes are flying.
Well, that's a tradition that goes all the way back to Godzilla films. I mean, that's nothing new, right?
And Americans certainly can't point a finger about that. Zero Dark 30 and all these other films are basically written by the American military. It's whatever. It's you can't use. It's hypocritical for Americans to say that just because the Japanese government is portraying, or the Japanese military is being portrayed in a positive light, that it's propaganda. I don't think that's true. Most Japanese people, and I will say this, yes, the attitude towards the military is changing here in Japan, but the fact is, the main image of the Japan Self-Defense Forces here is one of rescue. It's like the Thunderbirds, not the Space Marines.
But coming at a time where there's a lot of talk about nationalism, not only in Japan but around the globe, and the Abe in power and stuff like that, I think that makes some people very sensitive. People with brains, for example.
Yes.
I mean, it didn't bother me, but I mean, I have some Japanese friends who are like, this movie feels like propaganda.
Sure. I mean, it's a valid viewpoint, I guess you could say. But, Japan, in the movie, not giving anything away, Japan forms an international coalition. They actually, they're taking opinions from not only America, but Russia and China too. So it's not like this is unilaterally, man, if Japan was in charge of this, we'd have been taking care of this a long time ago. It is international in that standpoint. So I don't think that's the kind of view you can look at as propaganda, pro-Japan propaganda.
I mean, the pressure is on Japan to fix the problem, otherwise bad things are going to happen. But, obviously this is being, it's obviously a huge callback to the original Godzilla 54 more than anything else because, you have the music,
Yes.
the Kube music, you have the same fonts.
You mean the Evangelion
And
music?
in the original film, Godzilla is defeated by like a weird outsider, like Dr. Sarazawa,
Yes,
right? It's
yes.
not really, the army throws everything it has at Godzilla, but
Yes.
that doesn't really save the problem. But in this film, it feels like a group effort. It feels
Yes.
like, and that's fine. I'm not saying criticism. But the whole thing I saw the film too. I thought it was great. I understood very fucking little of it because my Japanese level is like
it's incredibly talky.
It's incredibly it's talky, but I didn't mind it because the tempo is so fast. The framing is really intelligent. Like, I mean, if it's got too much, there's silent movies. There's a bunch of Keystone Cops movies that don't have a lot of talking. I mean,
Well, this is a little behind the scenes thing that I heard from somebody who had talked to the producers, which is that when Anno first showed up with the script, it was like 180 pages long. And if you know how scripts work, that's basically 180 minutes. And Toho's like, you can't do. You're like basically joking. You're fired. You can't do this. We only have a budget to make a 90-minute, or whatever, 100-minute movie.
Squeeze in an extra showing
and it's impossible
every
to
day.
do this. And Anno said, actually, no, it's not impossible. I can record this in way less than that. I'm going to use anime seiyuu. And he got a bunch of anime voice actors to read the script in a test read and brought it down and read those 180 pages in under an hour and a half.
The movie's 2 hours long, by the way.
Yes, but the deal is because they use that style to make the movie, there's so much dialogue crammed in there, even native speakers have a hard time following it. I mean, he's really taking an anime approach. Like, let's get us shoehorn as much information in as we possibly can.
Yeah, it's information overload. I mean, I think that's an artistic choice. I mean, clearly,
Yes,
it's not like they can't show the monster because it's like it takes too long to render or something like that. Like, it's a deliberate artistic choice. I mean, to me, the film felt like clearly it's an episode of Evangelion. It's Evangelion without all the psychological bullshit.
Or
I like
the music.
Yes, there's music cues from Evangelion. The framing, the tight framing on symmetrical people's faces in the middle of the frame.
The kanji heavy like subtitles describing every weapon and like.
I think some of that comes from Kihachi Okamoto's Battle in Okinawa, which is like a huge film that was an influence on Evangelion. But the DNA to me, so half of the film, the influence to me feels like Evangelion. It's Anno's. That's his house style.
Yes,
he's not deliberately like ripping himself off. That's just what he does. That's how he. That's his technique. He has a style. He has an immediately recognizable style, whether it's live action or animation, which is pretty rare and remarkable for a filmmaker.
Yes. And pretty rare and remarkable in Japan of recent, note. I mean, that's one of the reasons I really like the film. I don't actually think it's a great film, but I actually like the fact that it's this guy's vision, and he really carried it out according to his vision. But, yeah.
The other half of the film is, it's a Godzilla film, so they have to play by Godzilla rules and do Godzilla things. And obviously Anno and Higuchi are huge tokusatsu fans, so it feels to me like this is the first Godzilla film that's kind of made by people who really understand the context and the symbolism of Godzilla. They've read all those books.
Yes.
Nationalism in Godzilla and post-war history. They know what's at stake with that character and what you can articulate in the context.
Yes.
So it's, I don't say self-reflexive or like meta, but I mean, they're not stumbling their way through it. Like, to me, the 2014 Godzilla movie, the Hollywood one, it's a Godzilla movie about nothing. There's a little bit of, some nuclear testing.
Yes.
There's a Japanese guy in it who looks like he's stressed out about something, but it really is not about anything.
Well, yes. I mean, I actually like the Gareth Edwards movie.
Jesus Christ, make it the fuck out
No,
of
no. I mean, it's whatever. It's what it is. It's a Hollywood Godzilla movie. I don't go into it expecting anything particularly bigger than
see, here's the thing, is Godzilla, the whole thing is like, your Godzilla movie sucks because he's barely in it, right? That's always the criticism against every Godzilla movie.
Yes.
Okay, but like, I don't think anyone's done this side-by-side comparison, like, is there more screen time in 2014 or in Shin Godzilla?
Right.
But for me, every time Shin Godzilla appeared, something fucking amazing happened. Like, the payoff was like, it's awesome.
He's honest to God, like, scary and gross.
Well, he's like an angel in Evangelion. It's like an unknowable, evolving monstrosity.
Oh, he's hugely an angel.
And, he's an angel, but it also brought me back to the first Godzilla movie because with the first Godzilla movie, you really don't know what this thing is capable of. When you go into the cinema for the first time to see Godzilla 54, maybe he breathes fire, it's on the poster, but no,
you don't know what's going on.
You don't know what the limits are.
Yes,
and with Shin Godzilla, you don't know what the limits are either.
Well,
and it's nightmarish.
One of the complaints I have heard said about the film, even from audiences here, is that...
From Joe Bob Briggs?
He's a little bit too powerful. You know, because he's almost omnipotent.
Well, they make a big deal of the fact that it's God. It's Godzilla,
Yes,
right? They
yes.
name check that in the script. So to me, it's
and the Americans name him in the movie.
Yes.
The Americans name him
Yes.
in the movie. That's the really funny part about it.
It's the problem with Pacific Rim in 2014 Godzilla is these are just big dinosaurs, right?
Yes.
Godzilla is a kaiju. There's something kind of divine
Yes.
in there, and by the end it's really wacky because purple Xanadu lasers are like coming out of his spine.
Yeah, I know, it's
like
completely
it goes
psychedelic,
over
yeah.
the top, and I'm
Yeah,
cool
yeah.
with that because
Yeah.
it's something new that I hadn't seen. Like, I don't know, American kaiju style is like, oh look, there's a foot. Oh, there's something in the shadow.
Yeah.
Oh look, his tail. Oh, but I mean,
Well, I think
hiding it in the dark. But in this Shin Godzilla, he's just walking across like a landscape in broad fucking daylight.
in the end analysis, I think the thing that this really brought back is him as like an indestructible force. You can't blow up a typhoon. You know what I mean? You can't fight an earthquake. You can't like physically stop a tornado. And that's like he's supposed to be a force of nature like that. In other movies, you know, Godzilla vs. Megalon, he's not so much a force of nature. You know, I love him in that film, but he's not exactly an unstoppable.
He's not fighting
force.
pollution, one smog
Exactly,
monster at a time.
Exactly.
So I thought the film was great because it did something new. It kind of it updated the whole nuclear scare thing. Not post. That's obviously the subtext for the original film in 1954. Is like
Yes.
World War II nuclear
Yes.
disaster. The nuclear disaster now is of course Fukushima 3/11.
Yes.
So it updated that, brought something new to
Yes.
the table, but kind of retain the essence of the original.
Yes, it was definitely less about like a kind of weapon of mass destruction, and more about like some horrible environmental slack. And they spent a lot of time going over the economic impact. Like, oh well, this is going to cost X billion yen. Oh, like the cleanup's going to cost this billion yen. Like, wow, the economy's ground to a halt right when we need it to be. The numbers need to be higher, and like that's really interesting.
Well, there's
like,
that whole kaiju subculture of like what there's books, right? Like what would it actually happen?
Yes.
What would actually happen
Yes.
if Godzilla like
Yes.
appeared in?
well, and this is the logic.
It's a product of a kaiju otaku, a different kind of
Yes.
kaiju otaku, not the kind that collects the fucking figures
Yes.
and buys them, resells them on eBay, but the information,
Well, it felt to me like
the what if science fiction scenario.
Anno and Higuchi have been probably had this drunken conversation back in college. Well, what if a kaiju really destroyed Tokyo, man? And like it's like every single one of those college age dorm room like super serious conversations about fantasy turned into an actual movie. It's a
Matt,
product
what
of that.
if Superman could fly around the world and turn back time? Is that right? What's
of
the
Steel.
morality? What's the morality of
What is it,
going
man?
back in time to save Margot Kidder from her cocaine habit?
Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex? Was that the story? Was it Larry Niven who wrote that or something like that?
Something like that.
Anyway, the one of the things that you touched on this earlier, like the kind of relentless pace of the film, even though it's really talky, it's like kind of the tension level is super high.
Yeah.
And you actually can feel that in the filmmaking, I think, too, because they were shooting that sucker like up to the wire. Like they were reshooting and getting footage right up like to when it came out in the theaters practically.
I know some people who worked at the effects house, Shirogumi, and they were. Wait, did I say that? I think it. And they said it was pretty intense schedule.
You can actually there's actual shots in the finished film that were filmed on an iPhone 6 because they just needed to get a shot of somebody's face and get it in there and get it quick. So it's like that's actually cool to me too. It's almost like guerrilla filmmaking.
Well, it takes Anno back to his Gainax roots
Yes.
for shooting kaiju movies on 16mm or Super
and
8.
he's just like, shit, we need a shot, get it in there.
Yeah.
Like that to me is like a real working man.
Well, that's the essence of Japanese tokusatsu. Like you're not going for realism. You're
Yes.
just getting it right. Like Inazuman's car is just gonna
That's
fly
real,
across.
man. That's real.
They really
man.
built that. It really going for the effect.
My one complaint about the film is I didn't need to pay to see it in IMAX. It's not really an IMAX spectacular
It
film.
wasn't. They shot it on the iPhone, Matt, specifically for the IMAX
Well,
format.
half of the film is literally like jammed up close-ups of somebody's face, and like half the actors are not really acting; they're delivering lines to the camera, which are then sewn together in this patchwork that makes it's almost like mosaic filmmaking in a weird sort of way.
To me, it felt like a docudrama, which again
Yes,
is the
yes.
essence of the original Godzilla film.
Yes. But minus all the stupid shaky cam shit that is the only way America can approach docudrama filmmaking. It's still film. There's still like a tripod down there. But you're right. They do it like newsflash.
Information overload is
Yes.
kind of the technique.
It's
Which I think is like it probably bludgeons a lot of some dumb people in the audience. It probably overloads their brain or whatever. But
I'm glad it got made. I thought it's really cool. Whether Anno is going to be able to like follow this up by making
a movie about little schoolgirls and doing Encho Kosai in Shibuya
in giant robots, I hope. A lot of Eva fans are angry. He had to take a break from the third movie to make this movie. But actually, the joke is this movie is basically Eva wearing a Godzilla suit.
Yes, it's a live-action Evangelion movie. But again, like at the core is pure, 100% pure Godzilla. Pure Godzilla 54.
Yes,
updating that
it is.
core.
Definitely,
not
definitely. Although the one thing I will say is it didn't have a really clear protagonist. Like, there's no Dr. Serizawa that way. There's no. Matthew Broderick.
I mean, some of it reminded me, like, the main character is it's the operation. This is also something in Evangelion.
Yes.
It's like the operation to defeat the monster is. That's what it's really about. It's not really about one person. It's like the Science Patrol without Ultraman.
Well, the tagline in the film is like Godzilla versus Japan, and it's like it really is. It's like the protagonist is Japan.
Is it like Breaking Two? Like this time there's an enemy, so they must unite.
Exactly.
Sometimes for what you believe in, sometimes you must fight.
Like Voltron. Why didn't I was really I do think this if he had played it like this straight up until the end, and then the government's response was to make a Mecha Godzilla, I think this would be like incredible masterpiece level, like one of those Miike, like I'm gonna slip you a Mickey, like it's a normal movie.
You think the story's over, but it's ready to begin.
No, it's not a normal movie. Like if he had pulled something like that, I honestly think it would be a masterpiece. My biggest complaint about the storyline is that it's awesome when it's focusing on the Japanese government, and it completely falls apart when he brings in foreign powers, like his Anno's grip on
female characters, for example.
Oh God, don't even get me started on that. His grip on international relations is weak, and so he's at his best when he's critiquing Japan.
Sure.
The responses from abroad, like every time he almost like does something that would really go in a cool direction, he kind of veers away from it, and then putting what's her name, Ishihara Satomi,
sure,
as this barely able to pronounce a single word of English, yet is apparently a presidential candidate in America. And like it's presented completely straight up, no parody, no joke. And every time she comes on, it's like even Japanese people in the audience
wincing in pain,
cringing.
I think some people are going to compare her to previous female characters in Evangelion, like Misato or Asuka.
She is Misato. This is the thing. This is Anno's fetish for tsundere, which is, women who are, for people who don't know, it's like, presenting basically as a jerk or a bitch, and at the end warming up to you, right? Like, that character works in anime, and Ishihara Satomi basically proves empirically it does not work in real life. It's the most obnoxious,
annoying. It's a bad note. It's a bad note in the symphony. There's no doubt. There's a bad instrument.
I actually think she's a good actress. I just think it's a badly written part, and I wish somebody who knew international relations a little bit, who had a better grip on what Russian
Bob Geldof, maybe We Are the World.
We needed it, man. This film needed it. It didn't have that, and that's what keeps it from being a masterpiece in my mind. It's just a good movie. It's not a masterpiece.
Another thing I really liked about it was how it kind of portrays Tokyo cinematically. I've never seen. I mean, it covers a lot of territory. There's a lot of different. You go from Tokyo Station, or it covers a lot of points on the map.
Yes.
Like rendered, like in absolute, again, documentary-like clarity.
Yeah, it's a Google
You
map.
step out of the theater here, and like, boom, it looks exactly like what you've seen on screen. But like, it's a great Tokyo film in a way of depicting the way.
Well,
I think 30 years from now, it's going to look amazing. Like when you see those scenes of Tokyo, like in the other previous Godzilla films, or when you see like what Tokyo looked like when they're filming like You Only Live Twice when he's out on the street. It's a time capsule. It's beautiful.
Yes.
But not the neon Tokyo, not nighttime glittering Tokyo.
It's a Tokyo people actually live in.
Neighborhoods and konbini and railroad crossings.
Nobody films a movie like Otaku.
That's what's so great about it. Is the documentary quality to it. I thought gave it this the nightmarish quality when a monster enters that level of normalcy.
And I believe Anno ripped off your blog post when we put Godzilla at the Umi Hotaru site in Tokyo Bay. Remember? We went out there with Andy and we
with the Godzilla toy. Yeah.
There's the Umi Hotaru being that like kind of spot in the middle of Tokyo Bay where the tunnel crossing from Chiba to Yokohama.
Chiba, y'all.
They took that from you, man. You should sue.
I want all North American distribution rights to Evangelion and Godzilla and all merchandise rights. All merchandise rights to Cutie Honey.
Well, this is the first Godzilla movie I've come out of like not wanting a vinyl of the character. Like it doesn't feel like a very merchandisable film, which I actually really like too.
Well, you go to the stores and there's all this Godzilla merchandise, but most of it is like kind of like millennial Godzilla. The designers are using it like it looks like a turd. I mean, it looks like, do you want?
Yeah.
Maybe I'd like a figure because it is kind of distinctive. I mean, it's unique, but at the same time, it looks like a fucking rat turd or whatever.
It's really grody looking. Like the design,
the texture,
is really gross,
yeah.
and it's like, which is good. Again, it's like creepy. It's a horror. Godzilla is supposed to be a horror movie.
Yes. Again, we're going back to '54. This is not
exactly the original one. Wait, Godzilla vs. Megalon isn't a horror movie? That's an aspirational film, Patrick. That's what I aspire to be. I aspire to be either a race car driver or a robot engineer.
I was really surprised when Jet Jaguar showed up midway during the film and said, "Hey kids, put your 3D glasses on now." I don't.
If something like that had happened in the last 30 seconds of this movie,
if it turned into Godzilla Final Wars, like in the last 2 minutes, and like the monsters.
Wait a second, there's 50 other kaiju out there. We didn't notice them. They're all fighting in downtown Tokyo. Like, no, that would have been awesome. I mean, but he's not that kind of guy. You know, like he's a very straight by the numbers. Anno director, and he's not Miike.
But it takes a lot of big, it takes a lot of risks. I mean, like it definitely like it doesn't play it safe. I mean, to me, like a 2014 or most of like the recent Godzilla films, the Millennial series, they're all about playing it safe.
Yes, but the one thing you can say about this film, I think, is there aren't really any like amazing twists. Other than, oh, wow, like the situation's even shittier than it was 5 minutes ago. Like, it's not...
There's a couple scenes where I was going, holy shit, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah, well, just because a scene is awesome, but I was never like, wow, I never expected to go in this
direction.
direction.
I felt the scale built in a way that I was satisfied and was getting goosebumps when shit goes down.
Yeah, well,
there's a certain point when they're launching like an aerial attack on Godzilla, they're playing Ifukube's music from Battle in Outer Space, which is like a deep cut. He didn't go for the Godzilla battle march, he went for the Uchu Daisenso cut, and it's just movie magic. It's just it's nostalgic, but it's also contemporary, and
I think you can say it rewards repeated viewings.
I'd love to see it again. I know it's going to be playing in America
I don't know
this October. People are going to hate it because people are going to show up wanting everyone loves Godzilla. They want to have net. What is it called? Fucking riff tracks. They want to laugh at it and.
It's not that kind of movie.
Have a Z movie experience. And it's not that kind of movie at all.
Saying this as a localization professional, I really pity whoever has to translate that movie.
Do you pity the fool?
I pity the fool because, A, if they subtitle it, there's nowhere near enough time to get all of that dense text on screen. And if you dub it, that's its own problem right there. But it's that's going to be one hell of a movie to localize.
I'm sure they have top men working on it, Matt.
Top men. And if you want us to do it, my number is 0422
8675309. Final thoughts. Shin Godzilla, the Japan's #1 movie this year.
Let's go buy some soft vinyl toys
and resell them on eBay at inflated prices.
And pay us for the time that we spent making this. It's good. Go see it. And don't believe people who say it's a bad movie because it is not.
It's almost as if people have some sort of agenda, some of them at least, with regards to being the people who only are qualified to make the judgment.
It's almost impossible to understand the movie in Japanese unless you are a native person. Like, even native
speakers are, saying, okay, it's a lot of kanji.
When they subtitle things on the screen with these, like, literally dense blocks of kanji and nothing else, like, even, like, college graduates in Japan have a hard time parsing this. So don't believe anybody who's a non-native speaker and says they understood everything in the movie. They didn't. I didn't. I certainly didn't. But what I did understand, I enjoyed very much.
What I understood, I think, was that history proves again and again that nature points out the folly of man. And on that note, it's time for you to say those magic words that I haven't heard you say in so long, Matt.
Hot tears of shame.